Good evening and welcome to another episode of More Than a Doctor. I'm your host, Dr. Christien Bolden, and this evening we have a special guest, Dr. Krista Miller. Miller is here with us tonight, so I'm very excited about this episode. I'm glad she graced us with some time to come and spend with us and come and talk with us. We have a great episode planned for you guys. So without further ado, I'm gonna let her do her little intro for herself because we sitting with another one of them ones. Y'all saw the one we had last week, Dr. Tyra Davis, and they are good friends. So like they say, birds of a feather flock together.
That's right. That's right. We really are good friends. And she was somebody I met when I first moved to the Baton Rouge area. So as I introduce myself, again, my name is Dr. Krista Miller. I am a veterinarian, a professional pivoter. I like to call myself sometimes. It's a role that kind of developed unexpectedly, but here I am. I'm owning it. Let's see, even where to start to introduce myself. And I'm trying to do that without aging myself, but I'm proud of my age. So that's not a problem either. But I am from Mississippi, not originally from Louisiana. I kind of consider myself a transplant here. I moved to Louisiana about 7 years ago. So originally a Mississippi native, attended Mississippi State University. We are in Baton Rouge, so I know everybody's a big LSU fan. I do have a relationship with LSU, thus the sweatshirt. Shout out to the student chapter of the National Association of Black Veterinarians at LSU in the vet school. Okay. So this is their most recent merch, so I like to support students.
Need one of those. I might have to give me one of them, man.
You got to get you one. So I'm definitely here supporting them. But my adventure started in Mississippi as I graduated from Mississippi State for vet school. For undergrad, I attended Alcorn State University, again, another HBCU. So not a Southern girl, but I do have Southern friends and family. So I do have a special place in my heart for Southern and every other HBCU. So shout out to those. But I am originally from Moss Point, Mississippi. Shout out to Moss Point, a very small town on the Mississippi Gulf Coast that started me on my journey to become a veterinarian. As I matriculated, left Mississippi, went to Arkansas, where I started to practice veterinary medicine and general practitioner. Stayed there for about 2.5 years, and then a whole magic story later, which we'll probably get into. I ended up in California, stayed out there for about 8 years, and now I'm here in Louisiana practicing as a veterinarian. I am married to Anthony Miller, who pastors Plainview Church in Baton Rouge. So shout out to Plainview Church and their members. Anybody looking for a church home, not a shameless plug, come and visit us at 1111 North Foster Street in Baton Rouge. So we're right down the street from BRCC. So everybody knows where that is, but we have two beautiful children, a boy and a girl, Hannah and Wesley, and it's really been an adventure over the last 15 plus years practicing veterinary medicine. And I tell people all the time, it is probably one of the most amazing careers, and I could not imagine having any other career. I love my job every single day, no matter how hard it gets. I love my job every single day. And I think I chose a career and profession that was fitting for me despite the challenges in the process. So that's me in a bigger nutshell with a lot of pieces in between, but we'll get into that as the show goes on.
Yes. Well, quite the intro. I love that, man. I love all of those things, man. From like Mississippi to coming to Baton Rouge, of course, your wonderful and beautiful family. Oh my goodness, and man, it's life is filled with all kind of twists and turns. Sometimes you never know where you're gonna end up.
That's true.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess to dig in, this is one of my questions I ask everybody. What does being more than a doctor mean to you?
I think sometimes it's easy to get caught up in our profession and what we do every day as a career. But again, we're more than just our careers, because our careers affect everybody. And as I'm sure you learned in school, and they're still teaching now, there's a lot of different job opportunities in this profession. Correct. And some of them cross lanes that you would never have imagined. And in those opportunities, we get a chance to meet people that we never would have imagined. And they turn into relationships that have nothing to do with veterinary medicine, but that was kind of how it started. So being able to be a part of different people's lives and different people's stories has been, I guess, a dream that I didn't know I had. So it's been real interesting to see what I do outside of just being a veterinarian that connected me to other people through veterinary medicine, but the relationships and networking that we built goes well beyond the career.
Most definitely. I couldn't agree more because I think of um, the people that I've met, the certain situations that I've been afforded
Yeah.
because of it, where like the initial interaction came, because I might have answered a question or
Right.
like a friend of a friend
Yep.
referred them, and then like what came, the fruit that came for that, not specific to what the need was,
Right.
but even after that, man, it's just like you'll be. It's like it's like that. I think what I just thought of just now was like that saying from Forrest Gump: "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get." So it's just like you can never fathom the opportunities that you can get,
Yeah.
the people that you can meet, and the experiences that you're gonna have, like the relationships that you're gonna build, professional and non. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because I've had clients that have invited me to church.
Yeah.
I've had clients that have invited me to their house for
Yep.
like dinner. I've had clients to bring me whether like cards,
Yeah.
bring any kind of like snacks and
Yep.
goodies and stuff like that. And even they'll send me like some of the ones who have my contact information will
Yeah.
like randomly send text, or they'll give me a call just to check on me, see how I'm doing, give me
Right.
updates on their pets and stuff like that. So, it's veterinary medicine, I think, is a community building type of service
Agreed.
that we are involved in, because it's not always about us. A
Right.
lot of times, we receive the fruit from it, but a lot of what we do in serving and walking in our purpose, it's to help others, and it's to show other people the good side
Right.
of everything. You know what I
Right.
mean? Whether that's life, whether that's veterinary medicine, whether that's health, like healthcare, veterinary care in general. It's one of those gifts that gives in ways that like you said, that you don't expect.
Right. Right.
With I guess kind of going back to your time in vet school.
Yeah.
And being able to navigate the different experiences, whether that's acclimating to vet to the school life, the workload and everything. How was that for you? Like, how was your experience?
Well, this, like I said, my whole life is a story. So
Uh-huh.
I have a lot of stories. So it's gonna, of course, require a story to get to what you're asking me.
Right.
So if I go back to my initial desire, it started at 5 years old. Wanted to be a vet, but I didn't start there. I kind of went to a career day, dressed as a nurse. Growing up in a low socioeconomic background and, marginalized area, when I walked into the classroom, every girl in my class was dressed as a nurse.
Really?
Remember going home, complaining to my mom, saying, you know what, this isn't the career for me. Every girl in my class want to be a nurse. And, coming from a predominantly black area, the great jobs at that time was you go to school to be a doctor, you're a lawyer, a teacher, right? Those were the great jobs, and a nurse. And I was like, so, I couldn't run for president, even though that wasn't on my list, but that wasn't the type of thought I had. It was like, if you're going to be somebody as a female, you pick one of those jobs. And so a nurse it was. My mother wasn't a nurse. I had no aunts that were a nurse. That was just, what everybody was. And so thought I wanted to be a kindergarten teacher for a quick second, had a passion for little kids. And I said, it has to be something different because I'm not really feeling being a nurse. And my mom said, well, what is it that you love? They say you should pick a career that you love. My parents were both hard labor workers, so, they just picked a job because it paid okay or paid well or just got a job to make ends meet.
Okay.
And I remember saying, all I love are all these pets I have. So my dad gave me my first dog probably at about 5 or 6 years old, fell in love with that dog. That was what I loved. And from that dog, when you're looking at living the American dream, the parents want to get you a house and a dog, right? So we go from an apartment, we get a dog, have an apartment. My mom and dad wants a house. We move into a house, and the dog comes to the house. Dog goes inside, outside, never had a shot, dewormer, whatever.
Right.
And so it became a thing where the dog had puppies, right? All we knew about spaying and neutering was whatever Bob Barker said on Price is Right to tell us to spay and neuter our pets, right? So everybody in my neighborhood had an outdoor dog, something tied to a chain that would twice a year, 3 times a year, break the chain because we knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And those were the dynamics of my childhood, but I love that. So I remember that dog and several other dogs from those puppies in that litter or the litters losing hair. And it's like, oh, the neighborhood man down the street says, oh, they got mange. Put used motor oil on them, right? It cures mange, right?
Right.
So you got all these things and remedies. And I remember, telling my mom, I love all my pets. I love all the dogs. I love all the kittens, whatever wandered up to the house. It was mine. And that's what I loved. And my mom says, well, they have a veterinarian. I don't know about a nurse, but there's a doctor. I said, okay, cool. That's what I'm going to be. That was the end of that. And I remember going through elementary school, going through high school, thinking, I really like this, but nobody had information for me. Nobody had a clinic for me to visit. Nobody had any resources. Got to high school, decided I was old enough to get a job, and I'm going to go around and call places, drop off letters, and try to volunteer. Nothing. Crickets. They either had somebody or they had family members that they've already integrated into those kennel assistant and volunteer roles. And I said, okay, and it was just a no, one no after the next. And I remember my mom, saying, how'd it go? Nothing, Mom. I just walked in, nothing happened. And here I am, a senior in high school. They had a talent program that would come to your classroom and talk to you about your career. You're getting ready to graduate. What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a vet. I don't have any resources for that. All right, cool. So I'll keep looking. Mind you, I mentioned my parents were hard labor workers. So they were like, you got to find it. We can support you, but they had 9th grade and high school education. So that level of what I needed, they couldn't necessarily find, but they would support me in what I could find. So I knew that I had to get good grades. I knew my parents could afford to pay for me to go to college. And I ended up getting in the band, and I became a really, really good clarinet player. I love playing the clarinet. And I would go through high school. I would get into honor bands. I would get into first chair. And didn't know what college I wanted to go to, but 9th grade I had decided I was going to Tuskegee, right? Because that was the premier black vet school to go to, right? So I said, boom, that's the college. This is the career. I'm prepared, right? Graduate from high school, fill out my applications, apply to Tuskegee. I get accepted, get a presidential scholarship for $27,000. I'm amazed, excited, happy. Got all these scholarship offers, and I'm like, yes, I get to go to Tuskegee. Only to find out, oh, it's a private school, and that $27,000 won't hold you enough. But because I had a really good band director in high school, and he decided, if you're a senior, you're trying out for the band at Alcorn. When we take the jazz band, every senior's going. I was like, I'm not in the jazz band. You're going. I was like, I don't want to go. You're going. So he drags every high school senior that's in the band to Alcorn State. It's about 12 of us, and about 10 of those are in the jazz band. So I'm like, why am I here? Don't want to be here. We all tried for the band. We all get offered full scholarships to be in the band. So where did I end up? At Alcorn State, because it's a free ride, right?
You know what I'm saying?
So I'm like, you know what? I'll take it. I'll go. And that was my plan of I can go to Tuskegee, later, right? For vet school.
Right.
So go through that and get to my senior year. But the funny thing is, and you're not going to believe this when I say that, from the time I wanted to be a vet up until my senior year in undergrad, I had never set foot in a vet clinic. Never gotten any hours of experience, never really met a vet to build a relationship with until I got to Alcorn. And it just so happened one of the instructors there, who was a veterinarian, first black female veterinarian I met, Dr. Cassandra Vine. Hello. She's my mentor advisor still to this day. They helped me to get, and really, it was so many people along the way that helped me to get there. But she was the one that was like, you got to get these hours. I needed 8 hours to, graduate from undergrad. Went back to a small clinic back in my hometown. And the doctor there was like, yeah, you can come do your hours. And he gets there, he shows me the world, but I'm deathly afraid of, like, what if I hate this? I'm about to get an animal science degree. What am I supposed to do with this, right? And so my first real experience with animal handling was at Alcorn, because there was a dairy on campus with cows. So I go from wanting to do dogs and cats to getting introduced to cows. And because I loved animals, it was cool. I had really great experiences with cows, but that was not the option of what I wanted to choose. And so those 8 hours I spent in that clinic really helped push my trajectory and helped me to know this was really what I wanted to do. The same passion I felt at 5. Every time I saw a dog walking down the street at 18, 17, it was still there, and I was happy about that. So I did the 8 hours, and I said, all right, time to apply to Tuskegee. So I submitted one application to Tuskegee, and that was my plan. That was it. And my advisor says, all right, so how many applications you submit? I said, one. She says, one? I said, yeah. She said, to where? I said, Tuskegee. What do you think? Like,
Right.
where's I'm going to go? And she says, Krista, that's not a good idea. I said, but that's where I want to go. And I only had 160 books at that time. It wasn't that expensive, but that was expensive for me because my parents couldn't afford for me to apply to all these schools. And I say that because there are some of you out there now that are still having this same struggle.
Yeah.
And it's just a different time. At that time, that was the cost. At this time, this is now the cost, right?
Correct.
So everybody can afford to apply to all these schools, but you do need to apply to more than one. So I told her, I said, I don't have the funds to apply for that. I can't afford that. And it's 160 books I don't have. And if God wants me to apply, he'll make a way. Other than that, I'm putting this one application. And this is even a lie when I say this. The next day, my bank account had $160 in it. My father had decided to give me money early for an allowance because he had missed a few other Fridays. And so he was just like, here you go. And I was like, I know what this money is for. Let me fill out this application. Because she said, how can you live in a state that has a vet school and not apply?
Yeah.
I was like, because I don't go. So I applied to Mississippi State. That was like, September? And then by January, I got my first interview for Mississippi State. And I went an interview at Mississippi State. And I'm thinking, okay, Tuskegee's going to show up soon. And anybody who has a history with HBCUs, we know, take a little time. Take a little time, right? Man. And so I said, it's coming. It's coming. Yeah. And I went to the interview, and within 2 weeks, they offered me a position into the class. Okay. And I was excited, but again, I wanted to go to Tuskegee, right? Right. So I waited out to that postmark date, and I said, Tuskegee coming, sure is going to show up. And I sent in the acceptance because I never heard from Tuskegee. The day I sent off my letter, the very next day, I got an interview offer in the mail for Tuskegee, and I was like, oh my gosh, And part of me wanted to be like, if I had waited a little while longer, I would have gotten it. But what if I hadn't? And the truth was, this is where I was supposed to be, and this is where I was supposed to go. Yeah. And I think what she said to me was, you have to learn how to work in more than one area. HBCUs are comfortable for us as African American people. But the profession I'm going into is predominantly white. And I have to learn how to navigate both spaces because my clients are going to come in different shades. Yeah. And I said, you know what? That was great because that's not what I was thinking. I was wanting to go to a place based off of comfort and what I see and feel like I would have the support that I need. So going into Mississippi State was different than I, was ready for. It was going into a predominantly white area, a predominantly white town, and a predominantly white profession. So there was a fear there that was almost debilitating. But because I had been through so many different changes with trying to get into the career in general, it was like, you know what? I'm here for it. And I remember the first day, because you had to get there like before classes started. Right. And I remember, they give you your intro. They take you to tour the campus. And, I've been here because I came in for an interview. And they say to me, into the entire class, one of the instructors says, look around. Look around at your classmates. All of you are not going to be here in 4 years. So I'm looking around the room, and it's like 2 of us in there. And I'm like, you know what?
We gonna be here. Right. We gonna look.
We gonna be
here. I don't know about y'all.
Now it's an extra level of fear because it's like, I really got to fight for this spot.
Right.
And I want to be here, and I'm not here because of my color. And you say that, but that's not really your true feeling, right? It's just like every day you're waking up with this mantra in your mind. You're here because you're supposed to be here. Right. You're not here because you're a number. And it was like every day I had to tell myself this. I felt so out of place. Oh, man. And I remember getting through my first year, and Dean Nelson, who's now the dean at Western in California, was actually the associate dean. And he walks up to me and he says, you finished your first year. And he said, you get the first year out the way, you're good, you'll be fine. True. And then he left and went to Western the next year. And I was like, wait, that's one of my support staff right there. Yeah. But certain things that people said to me that understood, you're going to struggle because vet school is hard, no matter the color you are. Right. But there's a different struggle that you have to face when you're a minority going through vet school at a predominantly white institution. So that experience and those experiences in school shaped me a lot. I was always a people person, so making friends was not a problem. I made friends while I was there. I built relationships with instructors. There were instructors that were there to help support. Not every experience was a positive experience. I'm gonna be honest when I say that. And there were things that if I could go back now, I would have addressed, but I didn't know I was supposed to address them because the way I was raised, and I didn't always see color as a barrier. I didn't see me being a female, especially a Black female, as being a problem or a threat. So some of this knowledge came later when somebody said it to me, or they felt like I did something and I didn't know what I did, and then somebody else said it to me. And probably one of the biggest experiences I remember is going through my senior year through internal medicine clinical rotations and having one of my residents go into the room with me and a client say that their dog didn't like me because of the color of my skin. And I walked out of the room and I was fine, but my resident started crying. She was apologizing to me, and I was like, it's okay. Like, I don't even know how to respond to I don't even know how to be upset because I'm just not that person. But that was really my first experience with racism, and I had never had it. I'm pretty sure it happened. I'm pretty sure it was one of the reasons I couldn't get clinical hours sometimes, and I'm sure it was some of the reasons I was turned away from a lot of things, but it was never my first thought as to, that's what the issue was. So it took me a while to really, go back to the place of saying, I want to go back and visit,
I mean, Mississippi, that air is heavy.
Yeah.
Especially in some of those places that, especially when you're deep up in it. So, I mean, I feel you. I mean, I've had similar experience in rooms, or not when I first got out of school, because I was practicing here in Baton Rouge, and I would do like I would take call at night and on the weekends. And so, we used to get people from all over the place. So we're like, as far as some of them would come from Mississippi, some would come from like past Central, some of these other like further out spots, more rural areas. And some of them would be like, they may not necessarily say it, but like you can tell by the way, like the tone, the mannerisms, how they talk to you and things like that. But I never, just like I'm sure that you did, like I never let that get to me, and I never let that stop me from giving the best level of care. And to a certain extent, I might not necessarily be able to change their mind or their morals or like what they believe in, but I definitely won them over as clients. You know what I'm saying? But just by proof, like not. I guess you could say proving to them that I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm talking about. And as we see, we had great outcomes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's one of them things that unfortunately, that we have to deal with, being who we are. And I guess like for you being in that type of environment and experiencing what you experienced, how was it how was it like working through those things like in time?
In the moment, I didn't even think about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was later when things started to happen repeatedly. And not necessarily just in school, it was in career, right? So I went from Mississippi to Arkansas. And then in Arkansas was my first run-in with one of my bosses about, it wasn't necessarily an issue. It was a way of trying to navigate some time off I had requested. And the time off that was requested wasn't easy to put a date to and a time until the time got closer. And so I remember when he wanted to confront me about it, when he came to me, he yelled. And I wasn't sure why, because I was in my office. He was like across from me, and I was thinking, you could have just said it. But when he started the conversation, it started off in a yell. And I couldn't figure out why he yelled until years later when I went through the whole angry Black woman thing, and finding out. So I think he was building energy to meet me at a level that I wasn't even at. Like, we've never had a run-in. I've never yelled or raised my voice at anyone in the clinic. And so I was really taken aback as to why he yelled. And so that was like, okay, my first experience with that. And so I realized, okay, is that the way I come across? So a lot of these things in the moment didn't affect me. It was later on when something else happened that caused me to question, if I was okay, or how did people perceive me, or something wrong with me. And I'll tell anybody, now practicing about 15 plus 16 years, it took me about 10 years to get to the point that I was confident in my own practice as a person and in medicine, because of the different experiences I had, whether it was bosses, clients, coworkers, different things that just in the moment I didn't think about it, but then
Yeah.
later on it just kind of added. If you think about like boxing, right? I'm
Yeah.
not a boxer, but my husband loves boxing, so I
Mhm.
sometimes watch him. But it's like a boxer can take a hit, right? Certain
Right.
areas, it's like, okay, cool, you hit me right there, boom, I get up, keep going. I don't
Right.
even fall down, but repeated blows to that same spot weakens you in that area, and before you know it, you feel like you've been knocked out, or you got knocked down and you didn't even know when you fell out. Like a Manny Pacquiao type
Yeah, yeah.
knockout sometimes.
So you felt I guess in some of those moments of reflection,
Yeah.
did you feel like that those experiences or those moments made you like second guess yourself?
Yeah, yeah,
and how you
definitely made me
practice?
second guess myself. I even asked one of my bosses one time, like, "Is it me? Is it my medicine?" And they couldn't really respond. And so, it's one thing when somebody tells you it's your medicine, right? Because I can feel
Right.
like I can go to more CE. Maybe they can
Right.
help me work through things. At this point, I'm only a doctor for 3 years. So, like, I don't know what you were expecting or what I did differently, especially when I moved to the West Coast. It was like,
Yeah.
I got to remember different things that we don't have in the South. And, foxtails, we don't have those in Mississippi and Arkansas. So, it was just things were a bit more challenging because the medicine was there, but, everybody practices different.
Differently, right.
And so it was like, well, is it me? Is it my medicine? And it was an answer. So if I had gotten an answer, maybe it'll make it a little bit easier to
More
navigate how
sense.
to
Right.
repair it.
I know that faith is a big part of your
Yes.
life. I know we've had conversations about that.
Yes.
And I imagine that being very important and
Yeah.
instrumental in how you dealt with a lot of things.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that?
So when I was getting ready to finish at Alcorn, I was introduced to the Wesley Foundation because most campuses have FCA, right? Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I started to kind of attend some of their weekly services or events or whatever. And then from there, we were introduced by some of the members to the Wesley Foundation, which then, really helped you to understand how to build a relationship with Jesus, right?
Right.
I grew up in a church, and it was a Baptist church, so Christian church, Christian belief. And I remember all these things being important to us as children. I remember my mama calling me saying, "Read your Bible." I would read my Bible every day, at least a scripture. Now, whether I understood it was a whole different thing.
Right.
But she will always tell me at some point it's going to make sense, right? And so it was always something there as a foundation. But once I started to explore it and have a reason to explore for myself and started to experience things getting a little bit harder, it took me back to, well, I remember my mama saying you can pray, or I remember I can read my Bible, and making it make sense to me became important. And so when I graduated, when I went to vet school, I was like, I got to find a church to connect with. And at that time at Alcorn, a lot of the Wesley Foundation members were members of Church of God in Christ. I was never a person that was sold on denomination. I just wanted to go where we talking about Jesus and being a Christian. So that's what I was looking for. And so it was a church near my apartment, and so my best friend was coming to visit, so we went together. And I remember walking through the doors of this church thinking, these people are really excited right now. They really excited about Jesus, and I ain't never been nowhere that's this excited, right? And so I remember being like, okay, all right, this is different. And then I remember going back to my apartment and being like, it was different, but something is making me go back. I want to go back. So the following Sunday came, went back, and was like, okay, you can't clap your hands in church. All right, okay, we're doing a little bit different. And I remember they had a college ministry there. And this was in Starkville, Mississippi. And they had a college ministry. And this was at Peters Rock Church of God in Christ. Shout out to Pastor Hawkins and all the people there that helped make me who I am today. But as they had this college ministry, you did not have to join church to be a part of the ministry, right? Which some places will require you to join a church to be a part of anything they have going on.
Right.
So
There's a lot of churches
yep,
like
they
that.
let you be a part under what they call watch care. And this was a predominantly African-American church. So now I find a place where I'm at a predominantly white institution. I find a place that I feel comfortable and safe at. So as I built that safety net, and the pastor and the members really poured into college students. I'm talking about they had a food pantry. They would give us groceries. They had a college Bible study. And it was Bible study on your level. Like, let's talk about what you're dealing with and let's talk about what the Bible says about it. And people that will really pray with you to help you pray through situations. And sometimes he'll come in and be like, we ain't having Bible study tonight. Let's go eat. Or he'll hand everybody a $20 bill and be like, y'all get y'all something. I don't feel like talking about Jesus today. And it was like, this is your first encounter with like, we can say that? Like, that's a thing? Right? So you like,
Right.
religion and having a relationship with Jesus Christ is just as real as me having a friendship with anybody else.
Right.
And I can come to Jesus and talk to him however. And I remember like, okay, let's talk about this relationship thing. And as we started to explore having a relationship and what that meant, it was like, it's no different than any other relationship you have with people, because you have to build it. If you're in a relationship with a guy or a girl, you can't learn them unless you talk to them.
Correct.
You can't get to know them unless you ask questions.
Correct.
Everything we need to know about Jesus is found in the Bible.
Right.
Going to church, building corporate and collective ministry, doing things together with other people that are like-minded, and having people really help you point out things that you can work on, and really asking Jesus, what's wrong with me and what do I need to work on to be more like you?
Right.
And so as that became a foundation for me, when I was going through vet school, it was like some of those things would happen. It's like, okay, Bible tell me to turn the other cheek, but today I don't feel like turning the other cheek. But Jesus, let me tell you how I really feel.
Right.
And now I get to tell him how I feel without having to know what they call the right words and the right accolades. I just get to go to Jesus and be like, you know what? Today was rough. I'm glad I ain't cussed nobody out, right?
Right.
And you start to have moments that you crying tears of joy and you don't know why you crying.
Yeah.
You've had moments of sadness and you trying to figure out how you happy now. And it really helped me to deal with things that were emotional from school stress. I watched some of my classmates didn't even make it through the first and second year. People flunking out, people getting divorces. It was so many different dynamics that occurred while I was in vet school.
Yes.
Different relationships that should have never happened to people in vet school.
You right about
Different. I mean, it was just some amazing things that happened in vet school. And I remember when I was in school, that was when Grey's Anatomy was first released. And some of the stuff that was going on, I was like, this happened in vet school. Forget Grey's Anatomy. And I remember like building that, my first time building a foundation of a spiritual foundation and relationship of understanding what that means and really making sacrifices for Jesus, for going to church. Because I didn't go to church on Sundays because I literally would study 4 hours a day in my little apartment, or sugar shack as it was called. And I would study, and my friends would literally come by and be like, you coming out today? They would knock on the door, you coming outside today? I'm not, I'm studying. And for the entire first semester, I studied every day for 4 hours. And when I went to that church for the first time, I only went on Sundays. They were like, you going to Bible study? I'm going to church on Sunday. We doing good,
Right.
And so as Sundays turned into Wednesdays, turned into who was Jesus calling me to be, it just unraveled. And I mean, they even had a choir ministry. I got to be in a choir. It was just so many things I got to be a part of when I really learned what serving others meant and making that sacrifice and being obedient to what God wanted for me to do. And some of those things, I was like, God, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's how I be thinking sometimes. Like, but you know what? It's like when he call you, he call you.
He does.
You know what I mean? It's like sometimes he'll put some stuff on your mind, and he will not relent until you give in and be obedient, man.
And that was the basis of how I got through vet school and even what got me to where I am now. And I met my husband at this church. At the time, I had no clue I would meet my husband at this church. Remember, I want to go to Tuskegee game, no telling what I would have met, right?
Oh, true.
So I met my husband at this church in the same ministry, who was a part of a whole different denomination. So that's how cool it was to have so many different college students that were a part of just a movement of it's not about where you are. It's about us all trying to collectively, serve and be a part of the kingdom of God.
I love that, man. That's because I think for me, I mean, I grew up in church. My dad is a minister. He is not like over a church.
Yeah.
But so I've been in church like my whole life pretty much. And I mean, I've had my times like, young, growing up, kind of staying in, I guess not in line, but like doing the things to lay the foundation as far as like knowing the Bible, reading, things like that. And then of course, as we get older, sometimes we kind of do our own thing. We kind of got to find our own way. And I mean, I've had my time there, but I've realized, as I've gotten older, gotten married, have kids, it's like the importance of maintaining, like you said, building that relationship. Because at the end of the day, if we're not spending that time, we're not gonna be able to hear him when he does call, or like especially if there's something that we need, whether that's like a breakthrough, whether that's like a healing,
Yeah.
whether that's like getting rid of whatever spirits or demons is like plaguing us or whatever it is.
Right.
If we're not spending that time, we're not gonna be able to hear him to get that deliverance that we need. You know what I mean? And so, I guess I'll ask this: what does how you laid that foundation, how you've built that relationship? What does that relationship with Christ mean to you today?
Yeah. So even today, being that it helped shape who I was, going through those struggles of trying to figure out. Once I realized who I was in Christ, then I had to figure out how does that make a difference in the rest of my life, right?
True.
So now you're going through this career, and it's like, okay, so if God has me here, truly He has me here for a purpose. So I learned to establish more of a purpose mindset and really say, okay, God, I want you to be the driver. I want to ride in whatever seat you put me in a car, and let's see where we go. Because I can drive, and I got one plan in mind. Now, I'm not saying I don't make plans and organize and do those things, but I also know that God can change them. I have things that I like, things that I desire, but just like I wanted to go to Tuskegee, He had a different plan because there were different things He needed me to see. And even in that, some people, can say, but I don't necessarily want to have to deal with what I know could be coming. Because there are some things God will be like, if I do this, it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. And I don't know if I want to do that. I remember going through equine. And I'm not a big horse person. And that was probably one of my hardest rotations. And I remember having to be on, and this one particular horse that was there colicked. And it turned out to be my patient. And he was there, and he was like a racehorse, so it was a big deal. And, the owners just wanted to get him back. And probably about maybe a couple of rotations before me, the equine hospital had kept having salmonella outbreaks. And so they closed equine for weeks to help to try and disinfect the hospital to make sure we get rid of salmonella. So finally reopened on my rotation. So going through a rotation, a horse there that has colic or whatever. And so he had to have intestinal surgery. But, if a horse stays hospitalized too long, they can develop founder, which is, a hoof disease. Definitely don't want that. So horse started to founder. So they put him on, at the time they were using this big machine called Game Ready. And they would wrap it around their legs to try and treat the circulation issues that could lead to founder, And so they used the Game Ready on. He was doing really well, right? Day of discharge. Every day we had to run a fecal test automatically. Day of discharge, run his fecal test positive for salmonella. So in there, I'm like, gosh, I just wanted to get this horse at the hospital. Like, this is my last patient. After this rotation, I'm about to be off, right? And so he ends up having to go to isolation. Now, at Mississippi State at the time, I don't know what they have now, but it felt like isolation was 20,000 miles off campus. And so this horse goes to isolation. I'm down in isolation with him. So now I'm there for days, right? Like, just in isolation with him. And it's one of those things where by the time I had gotten off that shift and that horse got discharged, it was 72 hours, no sleep. Wow. And so I remember praying, like, God, you got to help me through this. You got to help me through this. And I was like, I'm going to be obedient to what I know is right. I'm going to work these shifts. My shift that ended up ending on a Sunday at like 6 a.m. I got off that shift and I went straight to church. And I said, if I can stay woke for 72 hours for this, I can spend a few hours in the presence of God. And that sacrifice was life-changing for me. And that's when I really learned, we fasting because we don't have time to go eat. Right? But learning how to fast and make sacrifices for God because I'm expecting for Him to do something, that was my first lesson learned. Like, you fasted for this, wait till you see what I can do for you and what you can learn. And it was so many different experiences of being able to say, okay, God, I'm learning what you mean to be Lord over my life. I'm learning what it means for you to be Lord over my finances because I'm living off a student loan. I couldn't work. So everything about my life was student loan, from the rent payment to my car payment. And that was a student loan, And so I was like, you know what, these sacrifices are being made, but God, I'm going to be obedient. So I learned that obedience was better than sacrifice, and everything in my life I've turned to my obedience to Jesus Christ. So fast forward years later, when I started to build that muscle, because it doesn't come even when you know it.
Right.
It doesn't come easily and stay that strong. You got to build it and you develop it through the processes of different things that you face. And so as that muscle developed, getting me here now, I'll tell anybody any day, everything in my life that I have is predicated on my obedience to my faith in Jesus Christ, because he provided everything. And I appreciate him allowing me to be a steward over everything that he's given me.
Yes, indeed. And
my prayer every day is to be a good
be
one.
a better steward, right? I was about to say, it's like, because I know that's like one of my daily things. Is like, I thank you, expressing gratitude,
Yes.
being thankful
Yes.
for what he has done and what he is doing, even when we don't see it or we don't understand it. But also too asking for more discipline.
Yeah.
Self-control,
Yeah.
and like to be a better steward or manager for whatever he does bless. Because in time it says, you manage, if you steward over little, he'll give you more to steward over more. So it's just making sure that you in line and doing what you're supposed to be doing, and just making sure that you are giving him his just due.
Yeah.
Giving him his time, giving him his 10% and everything else.
Yes, all of that matters.
Yes, nah, for sure.
Even when you like counting and you're like, I could really use that 10% for something else.
Right. On that topic, what has been, I know a lot of things you probably took the leap of faith, but like what's been like some of the biggest faith leaps that you've taken in trusting just in his provision and guidance?
It's been a couple. Going back to when me and my husband got married and we were in Arkansas, we decided, my husband said he wanted to buy a house. And I remember I didn't grow up with like home owning parents at the time. And so I just, in my mind, we get an apartment, we're going to live it out, we're going to save money, we're going to buy a house, right?
Yeah.
And so my husband was in the Army and he got deployed to Iraq and he was like, I want to buy a house. And so I was like, well, who's supposed to buy a house? You in Iraq. You can't see a house. And, we get married like next year at the time. And so he was like, well, you can look while you're there. So I'm like, I don't know how to buy a house. So now I'm researching how to buy a house, right? And so I'm going through all these things about trying to figure out how to buy a house. And long story short, we buy a house, get a brand new house, right? And so for me, this is an American dream because where I grew up, the house that God gifted us was not expected. And I remember saying, I want a house that looks like this, like this, like this, like this. And the one that I initially saw was more above the budget than I wanted. And I remember saying, okay, God, this is the house. This is it. This is the one I like. We'll figure it out. And God said, no, this ain't the house. And I remember jumping online, looking for another house. And I was like, look at this price. Look at this. This the house. And so I remember calling my realtor saying, can you see if this house is available? And she was like, surely it's not. And this surely can't be the price. And so she looks at it. She says, it is available. And it's the last house in the neighborhood. And so we drive to the house. I walk through the front door and I say, this is the house. This is the house. And so make the offers. Long story short, we buy the house. And I was like, I cannot believe this is the house. Like we own straight out of like, we ain't even got married yet, but this is going to be the house we live in together. And we get married, move into the house. And my husband ends up losing a job. And the company says, we'll give you a severance and send you to another place and sell your house for you. And so he comes to me, he tells me what's going on. This is probably like 6 months into the marriage.
Wow.
And I said, you got to be kidding me. I got the dream job and I got the dream house. I am not moving. He says, okay, tell him she's not moving. He finds another job. So 3 months later, the question comes, because my husband was a minister. These churches on the West Coast need a pastor. Are you interested? I always knew that my husband was going to be a pastor. I just didn't know when. We had this discussion. When I met him, he was already a young minister at the time. Okay. He was a youth pastor in Arkansas where we were serving. And so I knew these things about him. But in my mind, he's going to be like 40, 50. He's going to become a minister. This is going to be great. Yeah. And so we go visit these churches and we walk into the church that he's visiting. And it's like that feeling of, oh, crap, this is it. This is it. And so we go back on the plane and it's kind of silent. And he says, so what do you think? And I says, I think we're supposed to be there. So like a few months later, we pack up and we move to California. Wow. And so I'm like, I remember standing outside and the movers come in the moving truck. And I remember looking at this house being like, we ain't even lived here a year yet.
Oh my goodness.
And we're leaving this house like, God, you sure this you?
Right.
But you gave this way. And we packed up our things and moved to West Coast. I ended up getting a job that was literally right down the street. It was like everything was laid out, sounded perfect. And then when we got there, he was looking for a full-time job to be a bivocational pastor because it was a small church. And couldn't find a job. And then I couldn't pass this state test exam. failed it 3 times.
Wow.
And so now what I thought I was going to be working as a doctor, I was working as a technician on technician pay. I finally passed the test. And I remember missing the South, missing home, and being like, I had a beautiful house. In California, things are built different, things are smaller, and buying a house is like unheard of. And after 5 years in, it was just like, people say, hey, you a Cali girl yet? I am not. And I remember saying, okay, God, you got me here. I know this is where you have me to be. All I want is a home that we own, and because I'm tired of renting and having to pay all these dog fees, right?
Right.
And so I remember I said, if you want me to be here, I want a house. We had looked at so many houses, and our offers hadn't been accepted. And the one house that we looked at last minute, not expecting, God gave us that house. We bought the house, no down payment, had a $1 transaction, and got a $500 check back.
Come on.
And I remember going from realtors, and they're saying, well, you need to put this much in for a good faith estimate. And I was like, I got $1,000 to spend. That's all we have. And, you know, in California, you supposed to save, like, your down payments are $30,000, $40,000. There are bidding wars. There's like a big deal. No, we didn't have that with this one. And I was like, okay, God, you can do some big things, but it's all about doing it the way he wants to and not the way I wanted to.
Correct.
The house he gave us, not the house I would have picked, but it turned out to be the house that we needed. And our children were there at that house. And when he got ready to move us, that house sold quickly and gave us funds to move across the country.
Right.
And in that, God restored us to another brand new house that reminded me of the first house that we owned 8 years prior that we, again, sacrificed because of obedience. And so those are just small examples of big things that God did because of obedience that I would have never imagined, because that's not the way I would have done it. It was too many things in there that I was like, well, God, we could have just done this a little bit different. You know, I would have rather not have dealt with that. But also, if I had never dealt with that, it wouldn't have taught me the things I needed to know about myself.
Exactly.
How to maintain a marriage, how to raise children, how to talk to people, how to realize the client at one end of the leash is just as important as that pet on the other end. Because we often say, you know, well, I'm getting into this profession because I don't have to talk to people. No, you can't treat the pet without talking to the person.
Exactly.
And that's when I learned to realize the people are the part that God's called me to. The pet was just a part of the process.
What role has family played, or how has it helped in, you know, walking in that purpose and through the vision, not only of like what you may have seen for yourself, but what God's vision has been? Yeah.
So, I always knew I wanted kids, right? But it's funny because I joke with my sister about this. We joke all the time, still to this day. I was the person who wanted career, not necessarily to be married earlier or as early as I did, and children. Maybe not. We could talk about that later.
Right.
And as life moved on, those things happened, and I feel like they happened the way they needed to. Right. But there was also that thing that you have an idea in your mind of what you think things should be, and then you realize sometimes the things you thought didn't make sense, and it was just like it sounded good in the moment. And a lot of that has probably come from, different experiences from our childhood, different traumas we've had through life that sometimes shape our thinking into one way. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the best way. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It's just that it was shaped from something negative. Right. And so how do we turn that into being positive? And so it changed my outlook on marriage and family. And so that became something that I wanted, and it developed as time went on. And I've noticed even in the veterinary profession, we often try to put things in this box, right? And even as people, right? I want to be married by this age. I want kids by this age. And I remember some of those things I said that I didn't want or that I ended up with. And some of those things I did want that I didn't necessarily get or the way I planned them. Right. And so as time went on and I was able to kind of navigate these things, I realized, we think, I got these student loans. I got this career to build. And so these things are going to have to wait. And I began to think like, if we focus on the waiting in terms of, I'll get it one day. I'll get married once I get rid of these student loans, or I'll have children once I buy a house, right? And realistically, how long could that take, right? You could
Right.
be 50, 60 years old, and then you're like, all right, I got it. Now you decide you
Time
want to,
to
right?
yeah,
And so
time
it
to
was
flew
learning
by.
how to live in the moment. And that was
Mm.
difficult because some moments I wanted to stay in and never leave and
Mhm.
had to outgrow.
Mm.
And other moments I had to learn to appreciate because they went by so fast. You think about how fast children grow, right? And
Right.
people tell you all the time, oh, love them while they're this little.
Right.
But all you can think as a parent is, I want to go to sleep. I want to eat my food in peace.
Yes.
You know? And so before you know it, you sit up sometimes, you look and you're like, dang, I remember when they were born, or I remember when I was pregnant, or I remember like
Mhm.
just random things. And you like, I remember people telling me just to learn how to enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
And it has taken me time to learn to do that. But even in the chaos of life I have now of going to work every day, like our kids go places all day long. We
Right.
work all day long. So all we can do is pray that the people that's raising our children when we're not there are doing a really good job.
Mhm.
Because then we get home, we trying to play mom, dad, auntie, uncle. We're trying to be there for holidays. We're trying to go to programs. And I told myself, you know what? I'm gonna be present for my children.
Right.
And the career's going to build, but I refuse to allow my career to dictate what I will and will not do. And there are moments that I'm like, that's crazy. You shouldn't do that. And I'm like, you know what? I trust a guy who's bigger than that. So I know that I need to be here for my kid because I don't want them to look back and be like, my mama wasn't in my Easter program or whatever
Right.
school had.
Right.
And I realized that there are other parents there in scrubs, lunch breaks, running around in plant outfits because you just like, you know what, I'm going to go work these few hours, I'm going to run to the school, then I'll go back to work. And
Right.
sometimes it feels chaotic, but I'm learning to live in the moment. So if that means that the moment turns into getting off work at 5, swinging through McDonald's by 5:30, taking one to dance for 6, and we sit in the back seat while my other one eating in the trunk. That's what, and he's gonna remember. Mom, you remember I ate in the trunk and it was really cool and I had a good time because I had my iPad and we were talking while
Right.
you were sitting in the front seat waiting on my sister to come out to dance. So whether it was that, because you know, as parents, you want to create these perfect memories, right, and
Right.
perfect components, and our children are simple.
Yes.
Life is way more simple sometimes than I know I make it. But my husband is a big, like, he's more spontaneous than I am. I'm more of a, like, it got to be more methodical and analytical.
Yeah.
And he's like, let's just go laugh or let's just go sit outside for a minute. So he really helps to build that balance for me because of the way I tend to process and think. And so it's like learning again, those moments are okay because every moment doesn't happen on like some grand scale of taking a big family
Right.
vacation and setting
Right.
aside 7 days to have a moment. Those are far and few in between versus every day. Life is every day and
you're
real
right.
life is every day.
You're right about that. And I mean, I think that's I think it's great to be for you to be able to sit back and reflect on how you have grown, how you've changed, and even change your perspective on it too. Because I think even for me, I had experiences that showed me that I needed to prioritize my children and my wife, my family unit as a whole more than what I was at a certain point. This was like earlier on when after I had got married, had kids, where I was just working and working and working
You
and
grinding.
working. And it's like I'm providing, I'm trying to make sure we got what we need. I'm trying to do all this, but then I'm like, I'm sitting back and I'm just seeing, like, after some time, I'm like seeing the effect it's having on my wife.
Yeah.
Maybe the indirect effect that it's having on my boys, because I mean at this time they're young, they're like maybe like 1, 2,
Yep.
go 3 years old, and I'm just like, I need to be there for that because at the end of the day, like you said, it's like I want them to be able to say my dad was there.
Yeah.
I had another experience, even I say a similar experience like today. Like my kids went on a field trip today. I couldn't go on a field trip because I was working.
Right.
And like I was low key upset about it because
Yeah.
I'm like, the school should have gave us more notice
Yeah.
because I could have made it more of a priority to be there. So it's just those things. But he was like, Daddy, you not coming with us on this? I
right.
was like, dang. I was like, no, Daddy not coming today, but Daddy gonna be at the next one. I
Yeah.
probably, I'll
And
be there.
it's hard to learn to give yourself grace. I think you mentioned on one of the episodes to give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And you have to give yourself grace because you would have made the effort. Like,
Correct.
you would have went. And also, I have to tell my kids, I can't do everything. We can't do everything, but we can do a lot, but we can't do everything. And sometimes it's just, in my mind, I have this big elaborate idea of what I want it to look like, right? So, like, my kid had a karate belt presentation earlier this week. And, I mean, I was like, block my schedule out. Don't give me another client for this time. I got to try to I got 2 hours to get to where I commute to get to where I'm trying to get to.
Right.
And so I get there just in time. And the fact that he just sees my face, it's standing room only. I can't even get in the room. But when they call his name, I'm trying to get my whole head in the door because I need you to see that I'm there. And I was there and his father was there. And so sometimes it's just a smile and the wave of the hand because in my mind, I wanted to be there an hour early with the best seat. And my kids aren't looking for that. They just want to know I was there. And so that's why I had to learn to accept the moment and the moments that were created and realize that it's okay. Because I would be hard on myself and then you get frustrated and then you start taking it out on each other. You and your spouse are at odds because of stress on the job. And again, another place to have to find, and I'm going to say this while I'm looking at the camera because I don't want them to get it twisted. These are not easy at all. These things that we've learned came from likely a difficult or hard place. So when you learn how to treat your spouse and do differently, you probably had some sort of disagreement that got you here. And then the issues that we personally may have with not being present, maybe something that a kid may have said to you, and it's like, I wanted you to be there, and we internalize it, right? You said you low-key was frustrated because you wanted to be there. And those things were works and are works in progress. Like, we just didn't get here, and it's days that we still have to go back and, like, remotivate yourself to be like, it's okay, and that the moments that you're living in and what you provide are going to create the best memories.
Right. No, for sure. And I think with intention.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? With
Definitely
intention.
requires intention.
With intention for sure. I think that's one of the key factors in making sure that we're present and not even that we're present, but in how we're present.
Yeah.
Because I have to catch myself even now. Sometimes it's like I'm home with the boys, but like I might be on my phone. So like I'm there, but I ain't really all the way there. And it's like, hey, bro, put your phone down. Just go put it in the room, chill. Even though they don't even want me to do nothing. Like I ain't got to get up. They just want me to be up in there watching what they watching what they watching. You know what I mean? Or like, oh, can we go outside in the yard? We're gonna jump on the trampoline. I'm gonna go outside. I'm gonna dig for something or whatever it is you want to do. Like, all right, bro. Daddy, you want to come outside with me? Just come outside with me. Like that's it. You know,
that's it. And like I say, what they want is way more simple than sometimes we make it, and we make it more complex because we spend so much time trying to want to make sure that they have the best childhood when they're telling us what their childhood needs. And sometimes I have to stop and, like you say, sit back and reflect and be like, okay, what is it that's needed from me in this moment? What is it that I have to give in this moment? And a lot of that giving place, and this is something that built that foundation, finding my time to spend with God in a quiet place so that I can talk to him and so that I can hear from him. And because our lives are sometimes so busy and so loud, the only time I get that is in the morning when I don't want to get up and everybody else still sleeping. And it's like 5 o'clock. And it's like, I remember my mom used to be up at that time. I'm like, why is she up? But then now in that place, I realized why she was up, because nobody else is up.
Right.
And it gives me time to pray and to reflect, to get my frustrations out, and it starts my day and makes it better. And so it's like when I miss those things, it's like,
it's the whole day.
Excuse me, y'all. I need to go in this room. I'll be back. And when I take that with me, it's like there is that armor to help me through the day, because as soon as you're done, one of your kids swinging from the rafters, somebody fussing, somebody yelling, dog barking, it's like all the things like, dude, I'm just trying to get into God's presence, and this dog barking in the other room, like, why? You been asleep all night. So it's just like things like that. And I've learned to be like, you know what? It's a part of my life right now.
Yeah.
And every day I'm reminded these kids are going to grow up. And that's what really kind of did it for me, was looking at my daughter and realizing, I remember when she was an infant and now she's about to be 13 next year, or my son just turned 8. And it's like, I remember the day you were born. And it's like, okay, I got to make sure I deliberately am intentional about paying attention to these things and being there for the moments and having the conversations. And like the world we live in is so different. Like I don't even really go shopping. Like everything's done online. And so my daughter was like, Mama, I want to get some jeans. And I was like, okay, we'll get them. And she was like, can we order them from Amazon? I was like, you know what? We're going to Old Navy. We're going to get in the car. We're going to drive, and we're going to try jeans on in the dressing room.
To make sure they
to make sure they fit right. Because we send everything back to Amazon, but it's convenient. And I remember sometimes as a kid, the things that we did required us to go and do. And we hated going with our parents to the store
Yep.
for certain stuff, or going to the grocery store. And it's like, now I'm like, oh, I got these little kids. I don't want to take them in the store. You know, you got little kids. It's a 5-minute run turned into an hour and a
Easy,
meltdown.
real
So
easy.
now it's like I'm enjoying that my kids are older, but I remember going through being like, when I get to this step, then I'll do this. And it's like, while I'm trying to plan for the next step, I'm missing the steps that are happening in the moment. So not only with my children, I have to do that with myself. I had to do that with my marriage. I had to do that with my friends, right? Because those are the people you barely see.
Yeah.
And so it's like, now I'm trying to be intentional about having lunch with a friend every month, finding a day for me once a month, even if that means I got to take a day off.
Yeah, no, that's important though.
Right. And
it's important.
Mental health, and like the new generation of veterinary professionals coming out, mental work balance and work-life balance is a thing.
sure.
Some of it's excessive, but it is a thing. Like, you just can't get $160K out the door, not doing any surgeries, and only want to work 25 hours a week. It's just not going to happen.
That's kind of crazy. That's asking for a lot, bro. I don't know, bro. You at least, but expectations. I could do a whole podcast on expectations, like new grad expectations. So maybe that might be coming soon.
Yeah, that could be a good one.
Because the thing about that is too, like, and I guess I don't want to get off on a tangent, so I'm gonna stick to where we at. But it's like, you have to think about just like the business side of it. And I guess we use this as a pivot. Think about the business side and what goes into running a business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There has to be, you have to have, you have to offer services in order for you to generate the income, and not just for to pay the salaries, but to maintain the building, maintain the equipment, maintain to continue to keep inventory up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All these things. And it's like a lot of people saying what they won't do. When you lining up different candidates, that's not gonna make you a better candidate. Because if you got somebody in there, say whether you're gonna make the same amount or they willing to take less, I'm not advocating for anybody to take less. I'm not advocating for that. But what do you bring to the table?
Yeah.
What makes you more of an asset to a business? That's what you got to think about. And if you don't want to work, but you still want this gonna have to be some give and take. You know what I'm saying? Or whether you do surgery or you don't do surgery. Doing that just makes you a better candidate. Now, there is a way you can do it that can be discussed, negotiated, and talked about. But we could have. So I'm gonna leave that part alone. But in a vein, I guess the pivot of practice. Yeah. As a practice owner.
Yeah. Yep.
How was that leap of faith?
Yeah.
And how did that process go?
Was when I was in undergrad at Alcorn, I had an instructor in one of my classes, and he decided, I want everybody to write a business plan. And I remember sitting there saying, write a business plan? What does that mean? And so, being a nerd by profession, I went and looked it up, and I was like, okay, this still don't make sense, right? So I'm writing a plan about what I think is going to happen.
Right.
And it's like, like, you don't know the answer. You don't know the number. It didn't make sense to me then, right? And so I wrote these business plans, and in one of these business plans, I was going to start a vet clinic, right? Turn these business plans in, pass, move on, no problem. Get my first job, getting to see how some things work, decided I'll never be a business owner. I'd much rather work for somebody. And then you start to work with somebody, and you start to, figure, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about that? And then, I ended up going from one clinic to another clinic, and they were, privately owned. And then I had my experiences in a corporate setting, in several different corporate settings, and all of them were different.
Right.
And some I had really good experiences with, some I had negative experiences with. And then I decided, we'll give academia a try, because all these things were things that, were of interest, but they usually fell into play when a transition was happening that I didn't plan. And so it was like, I go through that, and then I end up going into telemedicine, right? Because I wanted to be available for my children when they got on and off the bus. So I worked from home with a company and been able to do telehealth. Did it for a whole year. Actually was a really, really good job. Okay. Ironically enough, everything kind of shut down abruptly, unexpectedly. And I remember talking to a friend on the phone from that church I went to in Starkville, and she was calling me to tell me, hey, I got a kid that wanted to be a vet. Because one of the things I was passionate about was being a mentor when I left, because I understood how hard it was for me to get the experiences that I needed and the people I needed to talk to. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to be one of those people for people that look like me so that they can find me. And I'm going to be open about the idea that I am available. And so from time to time, different people will reach out, and she reached out, and I told her, kind of where to start, what to do. And she said, you own a business? I said, girl, no. I said, that is not on my list of things to do. And she said, okay. I said, wow, God told you you got a business for me? She was like, just keep waiting. I was like, well, I'm going to tell you this. God knows that I won't own a business unless together open it with my very best friend and colleague, and she's not here, so that's not going to happen. Okay. So fast forward a few months later, my friend went to school, vet school here, and so she shows up a couple times, her and her husband, and I'm like, y'all show coming back a lot, and then they sit on the couch and I was like, well, you ain't tell her? I'm like, tell me what? Well, you ain't tell her? Tell me what? And they was like, we moving back. I said, you got to be kidding me, right? You are not moving back. And so they moved back. And so she didn't have a job. And so I was like, well, a couple of these people reached out to me for relief. I don't know why they emailed me, but if you're interested, I'll give it to you. Gave it to her. The company I was working for at the time actually had a opening because they were opening a new location. And so I was like, I don't know how interested you are in corporate medicine, but if you want to give it a try, I mean, you can put your application in. So she put an application in, becomes one of the doctors at the other location. And so I'm excited because we're working for the same company, but we're not working together. That was a dream that we want to work together. Right. And so I remember us saying, you know what, we should start our own business. And we're like, we should. We'll pray about it. So we prayed about it and was like, okay, God, open the door so that we can open our own business. So doors started to open. We decided we're going to do it. And then it didn't really work out like we planned. And so it became, maybe this really wasn't the time. And I remember trying repeatedly for us both we both were trying to make this happen for both of us at the same time, and it just wouldn't happen. And so I had decided, you know what, maybe practice of ownership isn't for me. And, maybe I didn't hear from God like I thought I did. Yeah. And maybe, here we go with these maybes, right? It's just not the time. And I remember working that job and not the telemedicine job, not having it anymore, and that transition happened, and a couple of years go by, and I'm just kind of feeling my way through career at this point. And I was like, she says, here's a job I think you should apply for. I think you might be interested. I know you love community medicine. I fell in love with community medicine because of my upbringing and the animals that I saw in my neighborhood, and I was like, my dogs die all the time prematurely, but just a few streets over, they dogs living and thriving until like 18. That's a thing, And now being a practitioner for all these years, I'm seeing, from my own pets that I got after vet school, that just by giving them the simple things and the wellness visits of vaccines, flea, tick, and heartworm prevention, dental cleanings, just the basics, the wellness, that my dogs live to 16, 17, 18 years old. Right. No problem. Right. And now I got this key. I got all the answers, and I didn't know that I could be the solution to the problem in my community. So I always said in my heart that I always want to be a person that advocates for the underdog and give back to people in need. So I ended up working in community medicine for about, roughly 2 years. And in that process, I ran across the opportunity to own a franchise. And I was like, well, I don't know what that looks like. I ain't never owned nothing like that. I ain't never owned a franchise like that. Right. What does this mean, and what do you want out of the deal, right? And so as I talked to the person who got me interested, it was like, here's an opportunity, and there's nothing in it for me outside of having the ability to advocate for a person like you to have this. Yes, and I want to see more minorities own businesses because it's such a low percentage. As minorities, we want to make up, and specifically African Americans of the profession period, we make up 2%. So less than that is going to be those that make up the ownership part, let alone being a black female owner, even lower. That. And so I was like, I don't want to do this. My husband was like, why not do it? Because I'm afraid. And he says, what are you afraid of? I was like, of failing. And it was like, well, it's a part of life. This isn't your first time failing. So why let this be? I was like, but this is such a big thing, right? This is the place that's the closest option is an hour and a half away. I got young children. I can come up with a whole list of
Reasons
why not, right?
Yeah.
But then he was like, and give me some reasons why. But it really boiled down to the fact that I didn't believe that I could be successful enough. I didn't believe that I could do this. And so I remember praying about it, and it was like, I don't know what to choose. I don't know what to do. And God didn't give me a clear answer. Like, God will put you in a place and he'll be like, he won't give you a yes or a no, because what I realized now, what he was teaching me was how to take a leap of faith, a real leap of faith, right?
You're
so
right.
it's easy when you work for somebody else, right? You know where your check coming from, you know where your benefits coming from if they offer them. If they don't, you chose to not have them, right? Because your spouse got them. Something is like already laid out in stone. And so I was like, this is a huge risk. And I just don't know if I'm not a risky person. That was exactly the words of what I said. I'm not a risky person. I'm not a risk taker. And, when you're looking for a business loan and for funding, they will fund your business based off the low risk, right? So sometimes your risk could be, your credit score too low, or you got debt and you still got student loan debt, or how many houses do you have? Like, you too much of a risk, so we don't want to fund you. But here's a situation where it's like, no, we want to give you this opportunity, and don't worry about the funding because it's different. The process is different. And I remember reading this book by Dr. Bernard Hodges called Bet on Yourself. And as I read the book and read his story about becoming a veterinarian and the process of that, it was really encouraging and motivating. And I remember my husband saying to me, at the end of the day, if you betting on anything, bet on yourself is always going to be the best option. And the difference between me and maybe some other people was, even though I was betting on myself, I knew I wasn't going into this by myself, because I was like, okay, God, if this is what you want me to do, you can pull me back. If I get ready to go sign a paper, let the pen not work, whatever it is. And so my husband and I both did this together as a joint venture together. And like everything just kind of unfolded. I mean, it was like clockwork, being able to get into the building, get all these things. Like, it was great. But remember, I told you it starts out great and then things start to happen. And then the part that I was afraid of, those things started to happen, right? So now we're going back to this inventory on the shelf, these expenses that need to be paid, these employees you got to try and get and keep and provide for. And what happens when people don't show up for work? What happens when, like, conversations you have to have? And I'm a very, like, Oreo cookie person. Like, if I'm delivering bad news to a technician or employee, it's like, hey, you're good at this, but this wasn't good, but you still got this, right? So I'm sandwiching in between the cookie, the smooth cream, and another cookie on the other end, because I still want you to feel great about yourself.
I've heard that called something else, where it's on like another version of that, where it's like you start off with something good, but you sprinkle in whatever we need to work on, and then you end it with something good. And so, that way it don't feel so like the experience itself is not overall negative. But you also, because you still highlight the good points.
And I'm a very joyful person. I didn't do well with conflict. Like, and I'm using these past tense terms because this is where I am now, not where I started. And it's been about 2 years going through, almost 2 years as a franchise owner, and the ups and downs of owning. And I'm not going to even say a franchise, because I independently own this. I practice the way I want to practice. It just so happens that it has a name that goes with it. And it's like the people that I know that own practices, to be able to talk about the things the challenges that nobody ever talks about. And I was like, man, like, if I could have met somebody that owned a clinic, like, I probably could have made some different decisions, or this decision was a really good one. And I've just learned so much. And I know that if I would have never owned a practice, I would have never learned these things.
Right. I mean, and sometimes, the way things happen is for us. It's a learning process, and we learn those things and we can apply them later on, or in when other opportunities present themselves, or like just to show and demonstrate to yourself that you've grown. because you had those initial experiences. You may make a mistake, or maybe you handled it fine. It was okay, but you could have handled it better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And it's a hard conversation to have with yourself sometimes, because even looking at it from a doctor perspective, right?
yeah,
I was talking to some of the new students, or the future graduates that are coming up, and they're like, "Well, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to handle this." And I said, "You know what? You're gonna have your book of firsts,
yeah,
and some of your firsts gonna turn into seconds. When
yeah.
you experience your first death, your first euthanasia, your first I could have done differently, your first like negative experience with a client, the first time somebody yells at you, like you're gonna have a whole lot of firsts." And I said, "But what you do with those firsts is gonna make all the difference in the world. And sometimes you have to put your pride aside and be willing to accept some of the, I guess, the learning experiences that come along with it." I never forget I had my first euthanasia that didn't go well. And I thought I explained everything well to the client, which I know that I did, but it doesn't overshadow the grief that real people feel, right? And so because she was grieving and the process did go as I mentioned, some of that, if the animal moved or their eyes don't close, those things were hard for that particular client to handle. And I never forget, she wrote a letter to the practice regarding the euthanasia and the process and me as the doctor. And one of her biggest suggestions was for me to talk to her father, who was a human medical doctor, so that he could explain to me how to euthanize a pet correctly. Now, the pride in me said, "You know what? I'm a vet. He can't tell me how to euthanize a pet." And I told her everything. It was even my medical record.
Right.
But it doesn't trump people's feelings and emotional states, because the truth is she was grieving.
Right.
And so when God revealed to me in that moment, Chris, it's not even about you. It's about what she was feeling, and she was grieving. And so I remember looking up the steps of a person who grieves, right? And the blame is one of those, right? And anger and frustration. So in that moment, I had to put my pride aside, make that phone call, talk to her dad, because it wasn't even about me. It was about helping her through her grieving process by knowing that I had did something that was going to help make her feel better. So it's just things like that I've learned. And even with my employees every day, I always practice gratitude with them. I always talk about the things that I'm grateful for, and that's being a practice owner. And everything that I do is because God has graced me to be able to do it.
Yes,
And
indeed.
a lot of them may not even have a relationship with Jesus, but they know that I do. And so a lot of times people will ask my opinion. I've even had them stop and say, "Hey, I'm not really a spiritual person, but will you pray with me?"
Same.
Sure will. Or pull me to the side and say, "Hey, I don't know what I'm telling you this, but I'm having this issue in my marriage." And I really want to help create that safe space and let them know that I don't judge. But if you need something, I'm here, because this is something I'm always going to profess. And they know, when I'm with Dr. Miller, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it just helps for a really pleasant environment.
Yeah.
And people should be able to go to work and enjoy what they do,
I
right?
agree. I say the same thing. I mean, I like the way that you incorporate that and how you practice, and just like your belief system, and how you handle people, how you treat people, how you treat their animals, and even like your staff and your employees too. I mean, I think that's amazing. I mean, I think, maybe people in our field could take notes from that. Like, just to think about, like, not that all work environments are bad, but they're all different.
Yeah.
But they could always be some ways or that they could be improved with, like, how we interact with each other, how we interact with clients, how clients interact with us.
Yeah.
Even so to speak. And I think this field in general is something that we could use just to be a little bit more cohesive, a little bit more loving, a little bit more looking at. It makes me think, is like, think about how, like, this is how I always look at it. I always treat people how I want somebody to treat me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, from like my clients to like the employee, like people I work with, the staff, the team in and of itself. I try to bring in some kind of light, some kind of freshness, to whereas they feel comfortable talking to me about whatever it is that they got going on, whether it's work related, even if it's not, because at the end of the day, they know that they feel comfortable enough, or they trust me enough with that information, and with those feelings and those emotions, and that they have confidence that I can help guide them in whatever way that God leads, or whatever.
And they know that I care about their feelings. Like, I tell people, I care about people's feelings. So they'll call me, or they'll get ready to go. They'll go into a room, start a room, and say, "She was mad on the phone," or this guy here is not pleasant. And I'm like, you know what? Sometimes we got to look at what the situation may be. And there are some instances where I have to go in and I'm like, hey, like, you're doing too much. And if this is how we're going to proceed, this may not be the clinic for you.
Right.
I don't really match energy and raise my voice, but I do protect my employees.
Yes.
And I've always felt that way. Like,
Yes.
you're not going to come for my technician because they work and I rely on their work heavily every day.
Right.
And so as an advocate for how people should be treated fairly, I'm not going to let you talk to them any kind of way.
Right.
But I expect the same from them. And I want them to know that I support them. So all of my support staff, I support 100%. And I believe my support staff support me just as much. But we built that team relationship.
Correct.
And I don't consider myself a dictator. They know I'm the boss. And if I have to say something, that I will address it.
Right.
But I don't have to address it by throwing things, using profanity, or belittling them.
Right. Right. No, and I think that's I think as doctors, as veterinarians, I mean, I think that's how we should all. I mean, of course, you hold your staff accountable, but we should hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah.
To that standard like that. I guess I'll start kind of wrapping up, but I got another question. Do you have like a favorite quote or favorite scripture?
I do have a favorite scripture. Is Philippians, I think it's 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And even at my desk or my sitting area, I have it posted because there are moments that you feel like you can't do it.
There are plenty.
And the truth is, I can't. And that's because I can't do it in my own strength. I have to do it through the strength and the power that he gives me. And every day my prayer is that when I walk into the door, God, anoint my hands to do this.
Yes.
Give me the business strategies. Give me the wisdom to figure out what's wrong with these pets, and give me, ways to communicate things to people. Because, money's always going to be an uncomfortable conversation. But I want to be able to talk to people about things that their pets need and why we should do it. And I want them to accept the plan. I really don't have an issue with people accepting most of my treatment plans. But again, I'm community minded. So those people that walk in the door with $60, 25, I can work out something for your pets to be able to have what they need. So I always tell my technicians that don't look at a person and assume that they don't have what they need.
No, you're right, because I didn't see some people, I'm like, I don't know, but they come through.
Yeah, and some people may need to come through like at check on Friday. You know, we might do a free exam on Monday, and then we're gonna pay $20 for the cephalexin. I'm gonna call into this pharmacy, and then meet me on Friday, and you'll get the rest of this stuff when you get paid. So it's a way to work with people, and I don't like to make people feel like, well, if you got a pet that you couldn't afford it, you should have never gotten it, because we never know when we're going to be that person that could fall on a hard time, and I can't afford food or medications or vaccines for my pets either. So I try not to judge people just based off what they say, what they look like, and I love to build relationships. So when I walk into a room with a client, it's a thing of, let me find somewhere where we identify. Let me greet them and greet their pet and the people that's in the room, that to know that everybody matters. Let me talk to people and look them in the eyes. Let me shake hands. Like, I really want them to know that I care. And I think, some of those moments where I question if this is really where God wanted me, in those tough moments, I remember leaving home sometimes being like, God, I got an hour and a half commute. I'm trying to get my kids on the bus. I'm trying to get them to school. I'm trying to race over here for appointments. I'm trying to be present for 8, knowing that 9 is better. Like, all these things. And I'm like, God, you have to make a way. And I walk into a room and just walk in feeling defeated. And I remember walking in, and this has happened at least 3 times where I am. And the owner, like, I don't know what's wrong with my dog, and we need to euthanize. And we figure out we need to euthanize the dog. And this is my first meeting with this owner, and we're meeting over euthanasia. And they touch my arm and say, don't leave, because God has you here. And all I can say is, was she with me at home this morning when I said, God, I don't know if I'm supposed to be here? I mean, like clockwork, people would just be like, don't leave, because God has you here. And I'm like, okay. And so when I got to the point of knowing that God had me there, and I knew he had me there, everything that comes up, God got me here, and whatever God ordains, he has to sustain. So my expectation became,
we're gonna let him do his thing.
God,
You
what
gonna
is
let him
what
do
is
his
funding
thing.
at? What we gonna do about this? So it's amazing to see that even in those moments, things still aren't perfect, and it's been a process to being an owner. And people telling you, it takes 45 years for a business to take off, and then you jump on social media and somebody just opened a clinic, been open 6 months, and now they looking for associates, right? You
Popping.
like,
That's crazy.
now,
I'm like,
what they do
man, bro,
different? And you trying to come up with all these plans, all these ideas. You know what, God, it's in your hands, and I'm gonna sit down because there's really nothing else that I can do
Right.
but allow you to help me figure this out. So that's where we are. And if you wonder where we are, we're at PetSmart Vet Services inside of PetSmart in Houma, Louisiana.
To bring us to a close, I got one final question for you.
Yes.
With being a black woman, a black veterinarian, a black business owner, a black entrepreneur, what message would you give to other young brown and black girls that are in STEM or interested in vet med
Yeah.
or are looking to pursue a career
Yeah.
in vet med?
I would say connect with people now. You got people like myself, Dr. Bolden.
Yes.
And this is only like a small part of the small part that are right here in the backyard of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, that
Yes.
are actively receiving people that are looking to become a part of the profession. Everybody knows if you want to be a vet or anything that profession, that academics are going to be important. You know that you need to go to vet school. You know all these things. But the part that you don't get about life and life coaching and mentorship and somebody that can tell you you're not crazy, those people do exist. And I'll say we're like unicorns, and we're here, and we have stories to tell, stories to share. I'm one of those, just like yourself, that believes in mentorship opportunities. I do not look for people to mentor. I wait on them to come to me. So with that being said, if you need a mentor, reach out, network,
Please,
because the people are there. Don't wait for them to come to you, because they're probably not, because they're tied up in 100 things. But when you get their attention, they are there for you in more than one way. I can't tell you the number of veterinary students, veterinary technical students, elementary students, preschool moms, parents that I probably spend at least half of my week somewhere else promoting veterinary medicine so that people can see women of color like myself that are business owners. And now being a business owner and an entrepreneur, which is not something I would have chosen for myself. Remember, I was afraid of taking risk, but now I consider myself risky because it's really just faith. It's a faith walk. And if you're not sure what that looks like, hey, talk to us. We'll help lead you through it and show you how big Jesus Christ can be in your life and how he can make all your dreams that you have come true in his timing. So I would say if the dream is there and the passion is there, pursue it. Allow God to put his hand into it and watch how it grows into something amazing.
Amen. Amen. Man, Dr. Miller, you have truly blessed us this evening.
Well,
this was
good.
amazing. This was great. I know it's going to hit home for a lot of people. I know they're going to get a lot out of this episode. So again, I thank you for your time.
No problem.
I appreciate you. I love all the things that you're doing. I'm excited for all the things that you have coming. And I'm looking forward to seeing how God moves, how he grows, and how he provides, man, for sure. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of More Than A Dogtor. I appreciate y'all for spending some time with us. Like Dr. Miller said, if we got anybody that's looking for a mentor, reach out. She is on social media. If you want to plug your social.
I am. So you can reach me at Dr. K Millie. That's the plan, right?
Yeah.
And then you can just find me. You can look me up on, if you Google me, you probably find some amazing things about me. And again, it's not to toot my own horn. It's truly a gift of God that he has given to me. And so otherwise, you can find me at PetSmart Vet Services in Houma. If you look up the clinic, you'll get the contact information and you'll see me there.
All right. And as for me, like if you want to check anything else out that we have, we're at More Than A Dogtor on social. That's Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out, send a DM, like, comment, subscribe. Again, I hope that this was enlightening. I hope that you feel encouraged, and most of all, I hope that this helped you on your journey. Y'all have a good one, a good night, and we'll catch you in the next one.